Hola amigas, here we are in the second video where I'm going to talk about the verbs. Not only about the reflexive verbs but also the bigger picture, which are the pronominal verbs. Now remember that I talk about this big cake. This big cake is called the pronominal verbs. And the pronominal verbs has different characteristics. Now think about this cake as a cake with 4 slices, and each slice has a different flavor. Yeah, but these 4 slices, even though they have different flavors, they have one ingredient in common, and that ingredient is the pronouns. Now, if you look in internet, the name of the pronouns is something different. Well, not something different. They have a specific name. I don't even remember. It's hard for me to remember. But they are the reflexive pronouns. As we know, those pronouns. Me, te, se, nos, se. Reflexive. Yeah? So I'm just sharing that with you, not to get confused, but just in case if you look in the internet, you might find another name for those pronouns, but those are the same. They're reflexive. Okay? Now, that's the ingredient that these 4 different slices in the same cake share. That's the ingredient. All right? They are used in the same form as reflexive. But as we go through each slice, you will see that even though the pronoun is the same, it might mean something different in each piece. Not always, but it might. All right? Now, one of the characteristics, well, it's the ingredient they share in common, the pronouns. Then they are conjugated in the same way, and all of them end with se. Yeah? But they don't mean the same, but they end with se. And here's where it becomes confusing for people, because sometimes we think that all the verbs that end with se are reflexive. Well, they are not. Yeah, but here you will learn the differences. Okay, all of them end with se, even though they don't mean the same. And also another characteristic is that 3 of the slices have a regular or irregular verb in the infinitive form. Yeah? For example, lavar and lavarse. Lavar means to wash something or somebody, and lavarse means to wash oneself. It's the same action. Yeah? But it means different things. Yeah? For example, the verb besar. Besar, to kiss. Yeah? Besar, it's a regular verb in the infinitive, and then besarse, to kiss. To kiss, that's not reflexive. Besarse, that's a reciprocal. I will explain, don't worry, I'm just explaining right now the characteristics. Yeah, so besar and besarse. Okay, besar, to kiss somebody, and besar, besarse, to kiss with somebody else. Yeah? So that's the other characteristic. Another verb in regular, irregular, in the infinitive that might mean the same or not. Yeah? But I mean the action, right? Like besar, besarse is the same action, but there are, like, for example, portar, portar, and portarse. Portar is different than portarse even in this form, without conjugating. Yeah? Portarse, to behave, and portar, remember, to carry. Yeah? But portarse has portar, even though it means something different. Yeah? So they have not only the the se form, but also regular, irregular in the infinitive form. Yeah? So those are the characteristics they share. The se form, the pronouns, and that they have another verb, regular, irregular, in the infinitive form. Now, only 3 slices have the form in the regular and the irregular infinitive. Remember I talked? The pure pronominals, which I'm going to talk about as well, don't have a verb in the regular or irregular in the infinitive form. Only the pure pronominals. Alright? But the rest do. Now, let's talk about the first slice, which are the reflexive. That's the chocolate slice. Okay? Well, the reflexive verbs are reflexive but also pronominal because they are part of the pronominal cake. Yeah? So the reflexive verbs, I explained you already, you know that already. I explained that in the first video, you know what the reflexive verbs are. An action that I do and that I receive the action myself. Yeah? The conjugation, you know that, me peino. Me, yo, peino, yo. Myself. That's a reflexive. Now, the reciproco, that's the vanilla slice. Yeah? Recíprocos, verbos recíprocos. I don't know how you say that in English, but reciproco means something I do that another person outside me receives, and then I receive the action back from that person. Yeah? I do an action, the other person or more people receive, and then I receive the action back from that person or from that people. Yeah? From here to there and from there to here. That's reciprocal. Okay? Now, the pure pronominals. The pure pronominals are verbs that don't have a regular or irregular verb in the infinitive, only in the se form. Okay? Only in the se form. And that, what is a pure pronominal? Something that happens inside myself. Only inside myself. Yeah? It's not necessarily an action that I do to myself, but it's more like something that happens inside myself. Yeah? That doesn't affect anybody else but me. Okay? In what happens. Okay? I'll give you examples, don't worry. For now I'm explaining the slices. Now, the fourth slice, which is, well, the third slice is the strawberry, right? Flavor. Pure pronominals. Now, the fourth slice, which is the carrot slice, let's say that, are the verbs that are regular or irregular in the infinitive. Yeah? But they can be converted into the se form. But even though they can be converted into the se form, once they are converted in the se form, it doesn't fall into the other categories. Yeah? Now, for this slice, carrot slice, there is no specific name for this kind of verbs, or at least I don't know the name. Yeah? But let's call them the converted verbs. A verb in infinitive, regular, irregular, that can be converted into the se form, but it's not a reflexive, it's not a reciprocal, and it's not a pure pronominal. Alright? Now that you have the bigger picture, I'm going to give you examples of each of them. But I'm going to focus on the reflexive as I conjugate in the next exercise. Okay? Now, an example of a reflexive verb, for example, and I'm going to talk about in the present tense. You can conjugate in some other, like preterit or future or perfecto or whatever you want here, but I'll do it in the present tense and maybe sometimes in the preterit. Okay? Now, the reflexive. Yo me lavo las manos. I wash my hands. Now remember, we don't say mis manos, we just say las manos, because me is already me. Yo me lavo las manos. I wash my hands myself. Okay? Now another example is yo me peino todos los días. Yeah? I comb my hair myself. I actually know my hair. Yo me peino todos los días. I comb myself every day. That's an example of a conjugation of a reflexive verb. Yeah? Now, lavarse, lavarse las manos. Yeah? That's lavarse is the verb to wash oneself. Then peinarse, to comb oneself. That's the verb. Peinarse. Okay? Now, an example of a reciprocal. An example of a reciprocal, and these verbs, reciprocals, have one characteristic that the other don't share, or a characteristic that that are pure for this, or specific for this kind of slice, for the vanilla ice. That characteristic that I'm going to share, it's only for this slice, reciprocals. That characteristic is that because it's a reciprocal, an action from here to there and from there to here, only, or let's say most of the times, the conjugation is only in the plural form, nos and se. Yeah? For example, one of the reciprocals verbs is besarse. Besarse. To kiss with somebody else. To kiss with. Yeah? Not to kiss. Not just to kiss. Besar is to kiss somebody else. Yeah? Besar, to kiss, means to kiss somebody else. But besarse means to kiss with somebody else. Two people involved. Yeah? I do an action to another person, receives the action, and the person gives me the action back. Yeah? For example, mi esposo y yo nos besamos mucho. ¿Sí? Mi esposo y yo nos besamos. Yeah? My husband and I kiss each other very much. Yeah? So it's in the reciprocals, in this slice, you will use each other. It's like each other. Yeah? So, mi esposo y yo nos besamos. You see, nos is a reflexive verb. I do an action to that person. Person receives the action. I receive the action back. Yeah? So it's not only, it's a reflexive pronoun because I do an action, but also it's reciprocal because another person is receiving and giving back. It's not a reflexive verb, but it's using the reflexive pronoun. Yeah? With a reciprocal verb. You see? A little bit confusing, but once you get it, it will be a piece of pronominal cake. Okay? Now, so, besarse. Yo y mi esposo nos besamos. Nos besamos. No besamos. Besamos. Mi esposo y yo nos besamos. You see, two people involved. Yeah? Or los muchachos, boy and girl, or los novios se besan. You see, plural. Se, plural, besan, con N, with N, plural. Los novios se besan. Yeah? That's reciprocal. It's not reflexive. Yeah? So we usually use in the reciprocals, we usually use nos and se most of the times. I don't like to say never because there's always exceptions, you see, but let's say that most of the times the reciprocals are used only with nos and with se. Nos besamos, se besan. Yeah? Because it's an action between two people or more people. An action that is done here and received again. Yeah? It's not reflexive. It's not pure pronominal. It's not converted. Yeah? And reciprocal is an action that is done by someone, received by another one, and the other person gives the action back. That's reciprocal. Another example of a reciprocal verb is abrazarse, to hug each other. You see, now I found the word in English. To kiss each other. Yeah, to kiss each other. That's a reciprocal. Besarse. That's what it means exactly. Besarse, to kiss each other. Now, abrazarse, to hug each other. Mi esposo y yo nos abrazamos mucho. You see, nos. See? Los novios se abrazan. Yeah? Los novios se abrazan. You see, plural. Okay? Another one is, for example, let me see. Okay, despedirse. Despedirse. Okay, to say goodbye to each other. Yeah, despedirse. For example, at the end of the workshop, nosotros nos despedimos. You see, nos despedimos. It means that I say goodbye to you and you say goodbye to me. See? To say goodbye to each other. At the end of the workshop, al final del taller, nosotros nos despedimos. You see? That's another form, another reciprocal verb. Despedirse. Los amigos se despiden each other, between them. I don't have anything to do with them. I'm just saying that they say goodbye to each other. Yeah? Los amigos se despiden. Yeah? And because it's an action that is done by more than one person, or that is done and received by more than one person, me or the other, yeah, it's used most of the time with nos and no and se. You see? Because it's an action that involves more than one person, yeah, me and them, or me and you, more than one person. That's why we most of the times conjugate that only with nos and with se, plural form. Yeah? Now here, pay attention. Some verbs that are reciprocals can be reflexive or can be converted. Yeah, but that happens when you want to say something different. Not that you are doing something with each other, yeah, but the meaning changes. For example, besar and besarse, right? Besar, to kiss, and besarse, recíproco. Besar, yo beso a mis hijos. I kiss my kids. Yo beso a mis hijos. Yeah? That's just a regular verb in infinitive conjugated. Yo beso a mis hijos. Now, the reciprocal form, mi esposo y yo nos besamos. Mi esposo y yo nos besamos. Recíproco. Yeah? How can that be reflexive? Besarse. It can be reflexive when you say, yo me beso la mano. Yeah? But of course, we don't say that. We might say that in an expression when you're talking about loving yourself. Yeah? Yo me beso la mano porque me quiero mucho. See? But that's just a way of expressing something. You're using the reflexive form or the reflexive verb to express that you love yourself, that you kiss yourself every day. Just a way of saying that. Yeah? But it can be used in the reflexive form as a reflexive verb. You see? Okay? For example, ¿y tú te besas todos los días? ¿O te besas de vez en cuando? Do you kiss yourself once in a time? Yeah? But it doesn't mean that you kiss yourself. It's just an expression in the figurative form. You see? See? For example, abrazar and abrazarse. Abrazar, to hug. Yo abrazo a mis hijos. That's a regular verb in infinitive, a regular verb conjugated. Abrazar. Yo abrazo a mis hijos. Yeah? But abrazarse is recíproco. Mi esposo y yo nos abrazamos. Yeah? Now, you would say, well, what about my husband hugs me? Yeah? If you say, mi esposo me abraza, it's not abrazarse, it's abrazar. Even though you're using me, mi esposo me abraza. Now, what kind of pronoun is me in this sentence? Mi esposo me abraza. What kind of pronoun? Is this direct, indirect, reflexive? Yes, that's a direct pronoun. Me abraza. Why? Because I am the direct object. Because I am receiving the action that my husband is doing. Mi esposo me abraza. Yeah? And me is replacing a mí. Mi esposo abraza a mí. But we don't say that. We say, mi esposo me abraza. I am the direct object, therefore, me is a direct pronoun. Okay? Now, how would you say, mi esposo or tu esposo te abraza? What is that pronoun? Direct, indirect, reflexive. Tu esposo te abraza. Exactly, that's a direct pronoun. It's not reflexive. We're not using the abrazarse. It's not reflexive because, and it's not reciprocal because it has a se. Yeah, it's just the verb abrazar. Tu esposo te abraza. That's direct pronoun because you are the direct object. You are receiving the action that your husband is doing. There is no indirect object there. You are the direct object. You see? Tu esposo te abraza. Mucho. That's nice. See? It's just the regular verb abrazar with the direct pronoun. Now, how would you say? El esposo de Ferm abraza a Ferm. Mucho. How would you say that? Correct. You will use a direct pronoun, not an indirect. Direct. Yeah? El esposo de Ferm la abraza. You see? Because Ferm is the direct object. That's why you will use la. La is replacing Ferm, direct object, feminine. El esposo de Ferm la abraza. You see? Now here's where it comes confusing. Is it reflexive? Is this? Or where do I use the indirect, the direct? Is this? You see? Well, now you have a bigger picture. Now, I wanted to give you those examples so you get the big picture. And so you see, remember I talked that the direct pronouns and the indirect pronouns cannot be used with the se, with the reflexive form or the pronominal form se. All right? The direct pronouns might fit into a sentence where a reflexive verb or a pronominal verb is being mentioned, but it doesn't replace the pronoun. It's only an addition. But the indirect pronouns cannot be in a sentence where the reflexive verb or pronominal verse goes. Okay? I explained that earlier, so you should know that. All right. Great. I hope you have a bigger picture about the reflexive and the reciprocals. Now, the pure pronominals. Pure pronominals does not have the regular or irregular infinitive. Yeah? That slice, the strawberry slice, is the only one that don't has that. Now we say that pure pronominal is something that happens inside. For example, the verb arrepentirse. To regret, I think we say, or to repent, something like that you say. Yeah, so yo me arrepiento. You see? It's not an action that I do, it's something that happens inside of me. Yeah? Yo me arrepiento. But we don't say never yo arrepiento. The verb arrepentir does not exist. Or at least not that I know. Yeah? It's only arrepentirse. Yeah? Arrepentirse. Yo me arrepiento. You see, it's conjugated in the reflexive form. Me, yo, arrepiento, yo. But it's not a reflexive because it's not an action that we do. Yeah? Okay? That's a pure pronominal. Another example of a pure pronominal is, for example, the verb quejarse. Yeah? Quejarse. To complain. Yeah? Quejar does not exist, or at least not that I know. Yeah? It's quejarse. I complain a lot. In Spanish is me quejo mucho. Te quejas mucho. Se queja mucho. Nos quejamos mucho. Se quejan mucho. Yeah? That's pure pronominal. Okay? Because it's here you will say, well, that's yeah, the action that we do in action. But it's not really an action that we do, it's something that happens inside of us. We complain because something is happening inside of us. Yeah? Okay, I hope this light different, or this subtle line don't confuse you. Okay? So how do you know that this is a pure pronominal? Because it doesn't have a verb in the infinitive form, yeah, and because it's something that happens inside of us. And yeah, there is an action we do which is speak, yeah, but it's because something happens inside of us that we don't agree with. Okay? Now that's the pure pronominals. Now the carrot slice, the carrot flavor, which are the verbs in infinitive, regular, irregular, that might be converted into se, or that can be converted into se, but doesn't fall into the other categories. Yeah. For example, the verb ir, or ir a. Yeah. To go to, or to go. Okay. The verb ir or ir a is not pronominal, but it can be converted into se, irse. Ir or ir a and irse. Yeah? Irse is pronominal, but irse is not reflexive, is not reciprocal, and is not pure pronominal. It's a converted verb. Yeah? Irse, how would you say irse in the conjugation? Me voy. Me voy. That's when we say, ya me voy. I'm leaving. Ya me voy. Bye. See? Ya, me, ya means already. Okay? Ya me voy. Me voy. Me yo, voy yo. But it's not a reflexive. Yeah? Because it's not an action that we're doing to ourselves. It's just an action that we do. We live. Yeah? Me voy. Ya me voy, chicas. Ya me voy. Nos vemos. See? Or when you ask somebody that is leaving, ¿Ya te vas? Are you leaving already? ¿Ya te vas? Yeah? That's not reflexive. It's converted. Yeah? Another example of converted verb, for example, is the verb let me think about another verb. Irse. Okay, the verb quedarse, to stay. Yeah? No, quedarse, let me think. I'm sorry, let me think. Okay. It's hard. No, not hard. They just where is my list? I don't remember. Okay, the verb estarse. Yeah? Estar, to be. Estarse. Yeah? We use, in Spanish, we use this verb a lot. Estarse. I don't know if you use that in English, but we do say, for example, Graciela, vas a estar... No, we say, Graciela, ¿te vas a estar más tiempo aquí? It's a way of saying, are you going to stay longer? But with the verb estar. Yeah? Graciela, ¿te vas a estar más tiempo aquí? You see, Graciela, ¿te vas a estar más tiempo aquí? Are you going to stay longer here? Are you going to be here for more time? Yeah? That's not reflexive, that's not reciprocal, and that's not pure pronominal. Estarse means that I just do the action. Me estoy aquí. Sí, me voy a estar una hora más. I'm going to stay 1 hour longer. ¿Ya? Me voy a estar una hora aquí. That's how we say, that's a way of saying I'm going to stay. I'm going to be 1 more hour. Here, me voy a estar una hora más. Now, of course, you can say voy a estar without the me. Yeah? But then you are using only the verb estar. Yeah? Estaré, for example, in the future, estaré una hora más. Yeah? But also, me estaré una hora más. Which is that myself, yeah, is staying here. You see, there's a slight difference. And it might sound confusing, but once you review this again and again, and when you start listening to when we say this sentence, me voy a estar una hora más. Once you start listening to people when they say that, you will understand that more, the difference between estar and estarse. But for now, don't worry too much about estarse. I just wanted to give you examples of how we use and how that doesn't fall into the other categories. Yeah? Alright. I'm going to stop here because this is already long and I don't want to get you get more confused. And now that's a cake. I wanted you to have the bigger picture of the cake and not only the reflexive verbs. Yeah? Now that you know that, you're going to start using the verbs properly. Yeah? And confusion will little by little go away. Because now you know that you're not using a reflexive, but a reciprocal, or just a pure pronominal, or just a converted. Okay? Now in the next video, I'm going to conjugate the verbs in the reflexive form. Nos vemos!